Greetings, everybody. Welcome once more to the Dracovin Empire. Are you ready to dive back into the world of Golarion? The setting of the Pathfinder role-playing game system. We're going to be heading to Golarion to meet an individual today. A woman by the name of Hao Jin, who lives in Goka in Tianzi. So if you're ready to go meet this woman, learn about her legend. Learn all of the various things that you might be interested about her. Please, take my hand. I am your host and guide here, Dracovin, and I will lead you through a gateway, through the universe, through time and space, to Golarion, where we can meet these people, learn about them, interact with them. You're ready for that, though. Please do remember to give me a little bit of a tip, like subscribing the bell, and let me know if you've got any experience with it in the comments. What do you think about it? My hand is outstretched. The portal, the gate now open. It is time to once again enter Golarion. We've arrived! Goka. You'll see another video of her visiting Goka. But no, we are approaching Hao Jin. Now, I will tell you everything I can about her and introduce you to her so you know much. But there is always more information to learn and more sources to go into that deal with her, her after effects, her life. Why is she such a legend? And these sources, of course, are here. The Legends book from Pathfinder 2nd Edition is a great source. It deals with basically what's going on with her, most of the information. Though some of the Pathfinder Society scenarios, I'm showing off one of the Society scenarios here, do deal with her matched items, her and things like that. Similarly speaking, the Fist of the Ruby Phoenix Adventure Path deals with her, kind of showing back up in the major timeline, and her artifacts. Similar thing, there's the Ruby Phoenix book, and of course the TNZ World Guide is the latest book in chronologically that's been released, and does provide a good picture in the Goka section about what's going on with her. Not as big as some of the other books, especially the Legends book, but does provide a bit. So who is this woman? Who is Hao Jin? Well, she is a powerful sorceress. She lives in Goka, so she's kind of in Goka now, the city-state in Tianzi. And go see my Goka video, shout out to that one. She's known as the Ruby Phoenix. She's this bright red hair, and it actually grows brighter whenever she rises from Resurrection Map. She rises like the Phoenix. She's a powerful Grand Master of human Tianian descent. She is sorcerer and mythical archmage. So she is both very powerful and mythical. Keep that in mind too. She did for a time period live upon Access, but she originally was from Goka and has now returned to it. She worships Abadar. She was born in 4042. That's nearly 700 years ago. So, and she did die during that time period, and she's been frequently resurrected. We'll talk about it with her history, but that's also important. When you take a look at her, she looks in her 30s. The red hair, of course, is the most striking feature she has, but she does match it with ornate robes and bright crimson tattoos. She's known to be an eclectic collector of history and culture, but she was exiled in Access for a time because of some of those choices. We'll talk about it. But she recognizes the harm she did that caused her exile, and basically is trying to undo some of this stuff now. We'll dive a little deeper in all this stuff, but that's kind of where it is. She's also, honestly, interestingly enough, asexual. She kind of thought that this trait came from her death and resurrection, kind of that driving factor of not caring about relationships with others. But it also is more than just, romantic relationships. She has problems connecting with others in general. So she never sought romance. For leaving Golarion, she always threw herself into her work. And, she always feared that she might be broken or unworthy of love. But she's actually kind of gone beyond some of these toxic doubts nowadays, and has some confidence in her and her identity. So now that she's returned to Golarion and Goka, she's actually been visiting some Gokan matchmakers, trying to find out maybe there's someone out there for her to probably not settle down with, but at least find someone to have a good relationship with out there, She's, perpetually in her 30s. She's hitting that, 700 mark. She's got to, maybe settle down-ish, maybe? I don't know. That's kind of a tough one to kind of say about that one. So she's an interesting planar traveling person, So, let's go back in time to Goka, 4042. She was born to an Abadarian priest and a successful painter. That's where her worship of Abadar comes from. She had a pretty privileged childhood. She's fascinated with history, spent time in the famed Empress Yin Museum. And eventually, though, some of her reckless play there led to a fire, ravaged the collection, and it claimed her life. She died. Her parents spent a modest amount of their fortune basically resurrecting her, saving her from death. But in doing so, her black hair, her raven hair, turned bright red with scintillating fire, and the magical properties within her soul awakened. She awakened as the powerful sorcerer she became, or she would become. Now, she still had guilt here. She had caused the destruction of the museum, was lost, and of course her parents' financial hardships. So she wanted to protect culture from destruction. She learned over lifetimes, creating masterpieces, the Hao Jin tapestry, a very powerful magical artifact. It wove magic, creativity, skill through demi-plane that she basically used as a kind of museum work. She could pluck up people and places from destruction, preserve them in regulated biomes magically. Once she had created this and saved some people, she basically left Golarion, went to the cosmos, ended up in Axis. She wanted to corroborate the billion aeons that resided there. But she was reprimanded instead. The aeons are about order, and they kind of considered the Hao Jin tapestry callous, irresponsible, and a threat to planar stability. They actually called for its destruction, but Hao Jin struck a bargain to save it. She offered to serve the Eternal City and relinquish her memories of the tapestry's creation for study. Axis agreed, and she disappeared from Golarion about 4391 for over 300 years. So she's she's 350 years old now. She's going to serve Axis for 300 years. Yeah, but, being gone for 300 years, everyone thought she was dead. Goku began to have a martial arts tournament at her estate, as her will instructed. Victor allowed to claim a single item from her vast treasury. This Ruby Phoenix tournament, a competition held every 10 years for one item from her treasury. It started in 4401, and the most recent tournament was 4711. Well, technically there's a 4721 that deals with her actual return. Basically, that's the Fist of the Ruby Phoenix tournament takes place in, but the other Pathfinder adventure that I showed off is the one that took place in 4711. In that one, Pathfinder Society agents basically claimed the Hao Jin tapestry. They studied it, explored the museum, toured the cult of Lysandel and Apsus Consortium, learned of Thessalonian magic that could tear rips in the tapestry to travel across Golarion, abused the artifact in the tapestry. It had already declined because of Hao Jin's absence. It began to unravel. They sacrificed dozens of agents and former masters of spell, Aram Zay, to stave off the destruction long enough to find Hao Jin. Basically, she was exonerated her in the eyes of Axis and the Boneyards, and recruit her to helping return the tapestry to inhabitants of GNZ. So basically, they were playing around with it and were like, oh crap, we broke it. So the Pathfinder Society went on this massive mission to find her, exonerate her in Axis, get her back there. This bore fruit, and the assault by the hag Asilian, but the tapestry itself was ripped further than Pasha, scattering its contents across the astral plane. Now, she does have some relationships that we can talk about here, which we should talk about, because it matches how she is kind of nowadays. Of course, Sinadra, the Axomite, Sinadra the sculptor, taught her to craft demi-planes. When he grew jealous, he began to create evil demi-planes. One learning of such demi-planes for Sok Non Sun, vicious despot of TNZ. Basically, she was horrified that her mentor would basically help this cruel man. She tried to absorb the demi-plane of the glass lighthouse into her Hao Jin tapestry. Sinadra and Hao Jin fought for days across numerous demi-planes, and she emerged victorious and sealed Sinadra in the glass lighthouse and placed it in her tapestry. She basically lost memories of him, though, when she lost her memories to Axis and relinquished them. She only knew that she worked with him in the past, but she didn't remember anything else. Of course, with returning to Goka, she's got a partnership with Empress Na Yanfei and consults her in Gokan matters. Yao Guai Bao Ting was once her hair comb, granted supernatural life and sentience after being exposed to her transformation to a sorcerer and resurrection as a child. So, Bao Ting is one of her closest surviving companions. Bachuan, the nation that basically itself has some deep connections with her. Basically, a lot of the Tapestry people evacuated from the Tapestry have found home there, and investments there have been pretty big. Li Xian, the underworld dragon, that lives near Sarasur Crags in Bachuan. He has a lifelong treasure-exchanging relationship with Hao Jin, and is said to have indebted the dragon to her enough to facilitate the region's lease and his services for safeguarding his people. Diao Dashu in the Round Mountain basically was about Hao Jin halting a Lunghua invasion by the rat folk, Diao Dashu, in 6751 IC. Basically transporting a 10-meter wide sphere of Darklands of TNZ to the Tapestry. Became known as the Round Mountain. She's basically returned the Round Mountain and its remaining inhabitants to southwestern Poli in 7219 IC. And of course, the former bandit Kitsune Kui attempted to rob her, but later aided her in attempts to bring peace to the war-torn parts of TNZ. As the primary assistant. These are some people that are very big and connected. Let's talk about what she's been doing now that she's out. The Tapestry is kind of like gone-ish, but yeah. Basically, she wants to craft a legacy worthy of Golarion should she perish unexpectedly. That's what she wanted to do when she created her Tapestry. But her exile and access, she learned her true impact in a lot of ways. She wasn't the historian preservationist she wanted to be. She was a nuisance to the Aeons. She plundered others' history and heritage. She questioned her life work, she was filled with regret, and so she's trying to recover what was lost in the Tapestry. Especially when the Night Hag Asenian attacked. So she's got to go to the heart of the astral plane for this. But this is not the only legends from the depths that's recovered from this. She had gotten the Rude Cross Crucible, a Thessalonian ruin, and put it in there. And now with the return of... She basically put it as a museum. But with Rune Lord Belamaris returning, and the Rune Lords and New Thassalon forming, Belamaris is the one that had owned the Rune Cross Crucible. Granted, was it used for good or bad? Probably bad. It's Belamaris. It's the worst of the Rune Lords that still survive. She's kind of a jerk in many ways. But, she wanted her ruin back. It led her to Hao Jin. She wanted to return. But the Ruby Finks doesn't have it anymore. It was lost when Aselian attacked the Tapestry, and they reportedly stole the Crucible. Belamaris now swears revenge on Hao Jin for this trespass. But she's ignored Belamaris so far. Yeah, but she is trying to find the Rune Cross Crucible and bring Aselian to justice still. Geb has also contacted her, demanding return of the city of Hao Jin, return cities that she placed with the Tapestry, or equal favors from the sorceress. From the loss. More than Belamaris, Hao Jin has ethical conundrum. Basically, the Rune Lord, kind of still evil, but with the other Rune Lord there in New Thassalon keeping her in check, returning the Rune Cross Crucible, not as bad. She's probably not going to be as bad. Geb. Geb is another thing problem. He's still at war with Nex, and Nex is potentially returning. So he might be trying to resume that war. So she's worried that the stuff returned to him would only be destroyed or used in the war in some way. What kind of horrors he would have left. But the pressures from the Aeons of Access, who basically want to have the sites returned regardless of moral consequences, basically. She's got moral consequences that the Aeons don't. So she's burdened even more. She's also been shepherding communities that she took from the tapestry, restore them to the world that moved on without them. The Round Hold, the Sycaminian layer of the Darklands, she put it back in its rightful place. Removing it had destroyed a Yusoki settlement of Broken Ticker. The citizens were evacuated beforehand, but the residents of Broken Ticker and many have returned to Round Mountain, have basically banded together to construct a new settlement called Second Ticker. Its trade routes and much of its supplies were devastated by its landing. The residents now look to her for help. Basically, it's like, hey, okay, cool. You brought back the stuff you destroyed. Great. Help us out. You've kind of screwed things. We made do afterwards. You gotta help us out. And of course, her effect on her homeland. Goka. That's a big one. She's back. She's a very powerful spellcaster. Lung Law is gone, but the successor states are still there. They still have their territories. Goka, the city-state, well, she's satisfying her obligations to the Pathfinder Society. Goka has national pride over their powerful sorceress that, is a legend born from them, and she's still alive. So her return almost endorses Goka in a way, which threatens its sovereignty from the other nations nearby. So, yeah, war, people that want to murder her. There's a lot of problems that kind of loom on the outside for her. She's not in the best of shape, and just kind of has to use the relationships of people around her to help her out a lot more nowadays. She is powerful, but she is only one person, and she reflects more on her mistakes now. She realizes she made big mistakes. The Hao Jin tapestry, in some ways, wasn't necessarily bad, but it was violent. She basically forced people that were going to be lost into this terrarium to save them. It's not great. There was perhaps good intention behind this, but this is not the best way to do that. It's kind of hard to say whether these people agreed to it or not. It kind of sounds like they didn't. She judged them that way. She saw it. She wanted to preserve this history. This is not good. And yes, I kind of don't necessarily take the side of Aeons and Axis in this case. But they are right. She didn't do it. There were better ways to do this. Better things that could have been done. She disrupted things very forcefully. And now, she may have paid for it, but the after effects of that still exist, and this regret on her actions perhaps is what drives her away from doing major things. Her interference means a lot more now. She perhaps understands that even more, being one of the more powerful spellcasters in the world. A living legend. Very few other powerful beings like her exist. There are others. Geb, Mars. I can list others. But Hao Jin, not much match. So that's one of those things that she perhaps reflects upon now. Maybe that's why she wants to connect more with the people around her. Find someone. Matchmake. Make relationships with those that are in Goku, the Empress. A good friend. Someone that's a trusted person that they can work together with. Helping out the city where she was born in centuries ago to continue to flourish. It is an endorsement of that, which, yes, has after effects. But she perhaps understands that more now. She didn't really live a terrible life. But the things she did certainly had an impact. And she has regret about it. And maybe now she's learned some lessons. But are they too much? I can't say for sure. When the need to act arises, will she next time? Or will her hesitance of repeating those mistakes plague her? I can't say for sure. But it puts this interesting character in an interesting place, as it is now in Golarion. And Hao Jin, the Ruby Phoenix, well, she ever remains a powerful symbol of Kianzu, Goku, and magical might. I hope you enjoyed diving into that. This was an interesting one to dive into, certainly. There's a lot to talk about with Hao Jin, and I enjoyed diving in. If you want to check out more of my stuff, make sure to dive over either the YouTube side of things, where all these videos go up on. That's also where I got live plays, discussing tabletop, which all of my tabletop stuff is recorded, shown live on Twitch, so you can always check me out there if you want to chat in between things. Do there. Discussing tabletop Saturdays at 6. If you want to check that out live, I got social medias linked below. That's Discord, Blue Sky, Twitter/X. Those keep you up with the schedule, what's going on, all those kind of things. Anyway, I'm going to go and hang out on Twitch, maybe do some more videos and all that kind of stuff. But until the next time, I bid all of you out there a deep and wonderful farewell.